Hey everyone, this is my lifespan timeline presentation. So let's get going. So a little bit about me. First of all, I was born in England, so that pin on the map on the right is where I was from. A small place called Northampton, right in the Midlands. And then on the left, we have Roanoke, Virginia. That's my home away from home. It's where my girlfriend and her family live. So it's kind of the home I've adopted in the US here. Um, in the middle, you have two different schools, obviously SVSU as being one is where I'm at now, and the one above it is Wingate in North Carolina. It's where I started. I spent my first 3 years of college there before transferring up here. So yeah, just a little bit about me initially, and then a footnote. So I was a very premature baby. I think 24 days to be exact. So I was very teeny tiny, 4 pounds 8 ounces. So some of my milestones were between myself and my parents talking about it earlier on were a little later than we probably would have expected and liked me to be, but that's okay. I spent a lot of time in hospital up to about age 8 as well. So I missed a whole year of school. I actually spent 14 months in and out of hospital up until the age of 8. So didn't affect me too badly if you look at where I am today, but back then definitely I think I could have been further on as opposed to where I was, and maybe that would have taken me further now. So my infant milestones is very primitive. Um, Talking to my parents, we didn't really get tested for any of these back in England, so the only thing we could really relate to was having a palmar reflex, which I did very regularly. As you can see here, I was a big holder of items and hands. Always had to have something in my hands a lot. Did have milestones testing, I guess, just to check everything's okay with development and baby health at 6 to 8 weeks, 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months. They all came to as acceptable. But again, everything we looked at in class isn't tested to the same extent in England, as healthcare is not such a big thing. Voluntary infant and early childhood milestones. As you can see here is a few images of me doing some of these things. You can see crawling at 6 months, rolling and sitting at 8, walking with help at 10, and walking unaided at 14. You can see me on the right in my bouncer. I was in that from about 4 months, learning to support myself with my legs and jumping and all of these kind of things, which would help lay some foundations, even though obviously at the time I didn't know it. And then we look at some of the more complex motor skills, I guess, for an infant to toddler. Between 2.5 and 3 years of age, I learned how to jump and hop, and kind of, I wouldn't call it a jog because we're not that refined yet, but stumble with fast paces, a little more than walking, not yet running. But compared to what we're going to see on the next slide, all of these skills are very inferior. Um, Progressing into playing sports and slightly more complex foundational motor development and skills. So on the right here, you can see balancing and proprioception, a little bit of coordination, these kind of things going on, which is a skill not included in the list, but obviously you can see in the list the basics: kicking, skipping, catching, dribbling, mastered running, went from that stumble to definitely running, and other skills. There were still challenges in my development in terms of again in and out of hospital, slightly smaller than most other kids my age, which can be seen in the image on the right there. Um, and on the left here, even though you can see I'm using the outside of my foot to dribble the ball, which is a little more complex. I was about 8 years old there. So that image doesn't necessarily correlate with the ages I'm talking about in the slide. However, dribbling being a skill I picked up between the age of 4 and 6, you can see here is a slightly more advanced development of that skill a couple of years later. So furthermore, in terms of progressing in sports and foundational motor development skills, I began indulging in a lot more sports as I got older. Tried almost every sport that was thrown in front of me, anything from lawn bowls to cricket to rugby, basketball, track and field, swimming, you name it. I probably gave it a go. Racket sports, pretty much every single one of those. So developing more sport-specific skills as well as learning some new skills between the ages of about 7 to 11 was probably when I did most of my exploration and experimentation. But learning sport-specific unique skills, for example, cricket, I know it's really not that well known over in the US. Some of you might know what it is, some of you might not. Essentially, it's sport involving bats, balls, hitting, throwing, catching, bowling, which is unique. Learning sport-specific skills for something you've never done before, that definitely was a challenge in motor development, not just for me, but for everybody. So yeah, there's definitely beginning to be challenged and learning more complex skills, combining movements together, in whole practice. We do a lot of whole part whole. You can see down at the bottom here, we learn about parameterization schema, even though we didn't know we were doing it, while taking on new skills and through different types of practice, developing those skills, developing parameterization. You didn't realize until you maybe went through this class that you were doing all these things, but that's what you were doing from, even the basics, learning how to throw, all the way now to if you play baseball, you have your parameters and your schema, right? But then that third point where it comes to swimming, it's a brand new skill. You go from standing on 2 feet to laying down in water and kicking your legs and doing funny movements with your arms. I learned to swim about age 6, so relatively late, I would say, compared to a lot of people. Again, that was hospital hindered, but yeah, definitely those new skills coming in, learning to swim, and I'm glad I did so many sports. It allowed me to develop a wide variety of skills and definitely set the foundation well. So then transitioning into more competent skill practice, as mentioned before, I played so many sports in high school, but you only have time for so many, especially as you get older and your responsibilities become greater. So I focus more and more in a couple of sports, and soccer stuck around to about 14, playing academy soccer. Rugby stuck around till I was about 17 or 18. Then I had to get rid of that. But as you can see here, the two that stuck the longest were rugby and swimming. Rugby, I was practicing 4 hours a week, and I played pretty much once a week in a game. Swimming from age 13, 14 up to where I am roughly now. Actually, I do less now than I did in high school, but I was anywhere between 14 to 20 hours a week in the water and 2 to 3 hours in the gym. And at this point, you're refining skills, you're refining your techniques, your patterns, your schemas, your parameters, your practice methods. You're refining everything, and that's what the difference is between learning the skills and refining the skills. Moving into adulthood, even though now I'm an adult, I'm 23, almost approaching my mid-20s, which is kind of scary to say. I'm in college. I'm still an athlete here at SVSU, so I'm still very active, very healthy, very competitive, challenging myself. But I would say that this, combined with my lifestyle habits and my lifespan calculator indicating I'd lived to 91 and my VO2 being 57.9, tested in the Human Performance Lab, along with good family history. Two uncles passed of esophageal cancer and one grandfather passed of a stroke. So that's the only family history of any kind of serious conditions to note. So all is well in that aspect. As I get older, I know that because I'm a lover of physical challenges and sports, I'll keep this up for a long time. However, having had many injuries and surgeries, and also not having a lot of breaks in my athletic career, means that I might be susceptible to slipping into some bad habits and therefore hindering my lifespan. Some future goals in my 20s and 30s, hoping just to stay in great shape and keep up with some kind of competitive sport aspect, keeping a passion for things I've done, find new ones, definitely finding new ones, going back to old ones even. Set up the foundation for a secure job, start a family of my own maybe. I've got grad school to look forward to, not sure where that'll take me, not sure where I'll be working, definitely staying in the US, but who knows? To avoid regression, physically and mentally, super important. You keep it up as long as you can, physical and mental stimulation, and it's going to help you in the long run. Between my 40s and 50s, Not sure exactly my career yet, but coach, chiropractor, or PT is one of the three it'll be. Using that platform to maintain my own health and also help that of others and help their development or prevent regression for them. Still be competitive, whether it's Sunday pickleball or whether it's board games with my family, and just be a good role model. Be a good role model to those around me in the clinic, in my family, and myself. And as I get older, 60s, 70s, and look beyond that, to enjoy some downtime, be more flexible with physical activity, try new things, take on challenges still, make sure I stay fit and well, eat a good diet. And it'll be interesting to see where the world goes and how different it is by this point. A lot's changed in the past 20 years since I've been alive, so let's see what changes in the next 20 and the 20 after that. To conclude, as a whole, we know we all develop at slightly different rates. We don't always, if we're at the front early on, we're not always at the front, nor if you're at the back, you don't always stay at the back in terms of development. We don't always accrue our skills through practice and practice. Some of us are naturally a little more gifted and talented. Our parents can do things, our environment can do things that changes that. But the more we keep challenging ourselves, the better quality life we assume to have living forward. To recap about myself, although some challenges early on, my development sped up really quickly once I was exposed. I was able to catch and surpass people in a short space of time. I went from being slightly under the bar to, top athlete across the board, also top student. And then this led me to be successful, which I will attempt to maintain throughout my lifespan, to live a fit and healthy life with a competitive element in there as well.